This video will cover amortizing loans, specifically mortgages. Amortizing loans are loans where payments are made that include both principal and interest. So let's move over to paper and pencil and we'll start analyzing amortizing loans. Okay, what we want to do is compare an amortizing loan to a non-amortizing loan. That says versus. A non-amortizing loan, well, an example of that is often called a bullet loan. And so here's how they work. Start off at time zero like we always do. And if you get a loan, let's say you get a loan for $250,000. If you have just a bullet loan, you're going to make these payments. You're going to make payments periodically. Could be monthly, could be quarterly, could be annual, depends on the contract. And then you have the last payment here. And when you have a bullet loan, you're going to have to pay back the principal of $250,000, this principal. So you borrow this, you pay interest only, and then the last payment, you pay your last interest payment, and then you also pay back the $250,000 in principal. That's a bullet loan. It's extremely risky to the bank or the lender. Why? Because the customer that's borrowing, they'll have the money to pay back this interest, but how do you know after so many years they're going to actually have the $250,000 to pay off the principal all at once? This bullet lump sum payment they have to make right here. Well, that's why amortizing loans come in. That's why we have amortizing loans. Amortizing loans is you borrow, say, $250,000, and the payments that you're making include both principal and interest. And so your last payment doesn't have to be this huge principal amount. This last payment will be the same as all these other payments. These payments will be an annuity. So the exact same dollar amount will be paid. But each payment will include both principal and interest. Let's move to a table and actually explain that and build it out, and you'll see how the mechanics work of an amortizing loan, which a good example is a mortgage. So here I've set up a table, at least the headings and the columns. So we're going to have month 1, 2, 3, 4. That's usually how mortgages work. They're on a monthly basis. And in this case, let's assume we're borrowing $10,000. It saves us an extra zero in doing all the calculations. So if you can do it for $10,000, you just add a zero and do it for $100,000. If you add another zero, it'll be $1 million. But let's save some space and just do it for $10,000. Let's give the rest of the parameters here for this mortgage. And let's say the interest rate per year is 4%. So that's kind of like an APR, an annual percentage rate. It covers a year, assuming simple annual compounding. But mortgages are on a monthly basis, so we have to divide by 12, and the actual interest rate will be 0.333, and it keeps going, percent per month. We have a present value of $10,000. It's this amount. It's the mortgage we're getting. The future value will be zero because by the time we pay off the mortgage, there'll be no future value to pay off. And the other thing we need to know is N is 30 years or 360 months. Now obviously I'm not going to go down and build this table for 360 months. We'll be here forever. So I'll show you the first couple of rows. So now, given this information, what we need to do is determine a payment that's going to be made. And as I said before, the payment's going to be equal. And if you put this into your calculator and you hit compute payment, out will pop $47.74. $47.74. That payment's equal. So it's the same amount all the way down. Okay, so we got part of the table filled out. Now what we want to do is calculate, well, how much interest is buried in this payment? Because remember, I told you this payment includes both interest and principal. Interest and principal. I'm going to break out the two, and the sum of these two columns will equal this payment column. If you call this column A equals column B plus column C. Okay? And so, interest will be $10,000 that you borrow, the beginning balance. So we're looking at this at the beginning of the first month. Kind of looking at it here. This is the first month, and the beginning balance is $10,000. Payment is $47.74. So the interest will be $10,000 times 0.04, the annual rate, divided by 12, and that will be $33.33. And then if we make a $47.74 payment and interest is $33.33, the difference has to be $14.41. And that's what we're paying off in principal. So the very first payment includes a $14.41 principal payment. And then we now have to compute a new ending balance for the principal, which is the beginning balance minus the $14.41, and that comes out to be $9,985.59. That's our new balance. And so if you call this column D, this column will be D minus C. 10,000 minus the 1441. Now, the ending balance for month 1 will be the beginning balance for month 2. So just carry this over, bring it right over. There it is. And now we're going to make this payment, $47.74. And now we need to figure out the interest. Well, the interest is going to be based on the new balance times 0.04 divided by 12. And that interest payment will be $33.29. And so the difference between these two numbers is going to be $14.45. And now the difference between these two numbers, your new balance, is going to be $9,971.14. And we're going to carry that forward as a beginning balance for the next month. So this will be $9,971.14. We'll multiply this by 4 divided by 12, 0.04 divided by 12, multiply that out. We'll have an interest payment of $33.24. And the difference between these will be the principal payment, $14.50. And the difference between these two numbers will be $9,956.64. And we'll carry this forward and we keep going. And when you get done this, you'll be at 9942.09. Now, a couple of observations. Notice the ending balance, the principal, is slowly declining. At first, it slowly declines and then it picks up, because notice what happens. It's $14.41, $14.45, $14.50. It'll get bigger and bigger and bigger as we go on in terms of principal, because this interest payment will shrink. This payment here will stay constant. The interest will shrink because this balance here is shrinking. So the principal will go up. So when you pay a mortgage, the first few payments are going to be heavy on interest and small on principal. But as time goes on, your payments are going to be mostly principal because your balance is coming down significantly over a period of time. So when you get all said and done at month 360, you'll make that last payment of $47.74. The ending balance will be 0 because everything will be paid off. That's how amortizing loans work. They're often consumer loans that are amortizing loans, but you can get commercial loans that are amortizing loans also.